The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom, and enjoy this bonus episode of Podcasting After Dark.
Hey everybody, co-host Corey here, flying solo. I'm trying something new. I think I want to try to see if I can do some of these mini reviews, maybe kind of cover some movies that Zach and I, might not get around to covering on the show proper. Or if we do, it might not be anytime soon, of course, unless a Patreon member requests one of these movies. But I figured this would be kind of fun to do, and we'll kind of, see what happens. I kind of liken it to when I do those solo video game reviews, and, I kind of have fun with those. I'd like to do more of those in 2025, but the reality is that I don't play, I game a lot, but I play a lot of the same games sort of over and over and over. Like, I'm playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre still, and I think I reviewed that like a year and a half ago. So, it's not like I go and I play a bunch of different games. I kind of just find a game that I like and I play it for a long time. So that's why I don't really do a lot of those solo video game reviews. But obviously, I watch a lot of movies outside of what, Zach and I have to watch for the show. Be it, the proper Podcast After Dark reviews or, the Coscarelli Factor on Patreon, which we're actually wrapping up pretty soon. Coscarelli Factor. We're going to go on to another auteur. That's why the Patreon tier is called Auteur de Force. We started with John Carpenter. We did Don Coscarelli, and now after we're done with him, we'll move on to somebody else. But like I said, I love movies. I went to school for film at Towson University. I never really made movies, but I love movies, and I love watching movies, and I love talking about movies. So, and obviously I'm a little bit narcissistic. I think you have to have a podcast and to want to hear the sound of your own voice, and especially doing a solo review of something. But I can't really get my wife to come on this, so she's not really down for that. So, yeah, I have to fly solo. And I bring my wife up because the first episode I'm trying out is Nosferatu. And my wife and I saw that last week. Everyone's talking about it right now. I was jazzed to see it. I was very excited to see it. It's by Robert Eggers. I am a big fan of The Lighthouse and The Witch. I enjoyed The Northman, although not as much as I wanted to. Like, I feel like The Northman, I really was expecting to like it more, and I can't quite put my finger on what I didn't like about it. Well, I can a little bit. Nicole Kidman was a part of that, but overall, like The Northman, I was very excited for that movie, and it didn't let me down. It's just I don't know if I ever really need to see it again. Unfortunately, Nosferatu kind of falls in that category. Like, I loved it visually, but I didn't quite love the movie as a whole. And I'll kind of get into some of my thoughts and everything on it. And I'll try to be as spoiler-free as possible. I want these reviews to kind of be out there and for people to listen to them and not have to worry about spoilers. So I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible. But, let's start at the top, of Nosferatu. Obviously, it's a remake. We know that. And it's obviously a remake of the 1922 F.W. Murnau film of the same name, which, of course, was a telling of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I believe the production company didn't have the rights to Bram Stoker's Dracula, so they called it Nosferatu. Dracula became Count Orlok. It's all pretty common knowledge stuff. So this movie is, I'd say, probably less of an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, more of a remake of the original Nosferatu. Can't really sort of tell you particulars because I have not seen that movie since, I think, film school. I think I watched it back in film school, which was now light years ago, early 2000s. I've never seen the Klaus Kinski and Werner Herzog Nosferatu film. I want to. I have seen Bram Stoker's Dracula. I love that movie, and I actually just watched the 4K relatively recently, I think within the year. I think that movie holds up really, really well. Robert Eggers, as I mentioned, he did The Witch, which I think is fantastic. The Lighthouse, which I thought was probably one of the funniest movies of 2019. I think it was a great dark comedy. He also did The Northman, and now he's doing Nosferatu. And one of the things that all of those movies have in common is how beautiful they look, thanks to cinematographer Jaron Blaskey. This guy, he can create the most beautiful inky blacks you've ever seen. He can make something so desolate, look so beautiful. And this movie was absolutely gorgeous from beginning to end. It's not quite black and white. Some parts are in color. The parts that are in black and white, I think, are supposed to indicate sort of what Count Orlok, like the moments of the film that Count Orlok has influence over, kind of makes it black and white. The transition between color and black and white is not jarring. I think it's very helpful to sort of, center the tone and give you an idea of where you are sort of in the story and sort of like, whose mindset you're sort of in. There's one particular scene in the movie where Nicholas Hoult, who plays Thomas Hutter, he's getting close to Count Orlok's castle, and he gets to like this crossroads in the road, and he's like in this like dark forest, and it's only lit by like a soft light from above that's coming down between the trees, and everything else is so like inky dark and black, and it's amazing, and like snow is falling down, and then like a carriage comes to get him, a magical carriage. It's the same scene that you see in Bram Stoker's Dracula, where Keanu Reeves, the carriage sort of picks him up on his way, and then the wolves sort of chase him through, but like this scene in Nosferatu was unbelievable. Like I want to take a picture, like a frame from this scene, and like blow it up into a poster and just like frame it. That's how beautiful it is. Getting into the cast and everything, Lily Rose Depp was unbelievable. Absolutely, her performance, absolutely amazing. I loved everything she was doing, her contortions, her, crazy facial expressions when, the ecstasy of Orlok is on top of her, even though it's sort of in her mind and everything. It's unbelievably good. Her performance is fantastic. And I know people are praising it, and as well they should, because it's absolutely worth it. Billing wise, Nicholas Hoult is second, but let me talk about Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, because I feel like his performance, coupled with Lily Rose Depp, is what makes this movie just brilliant. Absolutely beautiful and absolutely brilliant. Not perfect, but I'll get to that. I think Count Orlok was a beautiful realization from Bill Skarsgård. I didn't even recognize him. He's so vastly different from Pennywise the Clown, and I think this should really solidify Bill Skarsgård as a powerhouse, really. And just like what he's doing with Count Orlok is just awesome. I love the look of him. I love his thick mustache that he has, and just the way his presence is there. He's always so intimidating and larger than life, and grotesque, but also like noble and and sort of beautiful in a way, but not beautiful in a way that, like, I think more of a traditional Dracula vampire would be. But there is something just remarkable about Count Orlok in this movie, and he is truly the reason that you want to see this film, is Bill Skarsgård. And then, like, when him and Lily Rose Depp are together, like, it takes it to a whole nother level. Nicholas Hoult and Aaron Taylor Johnson, they're great as well, but I would say that they're a little bit more subdued and kind of underutilized. Like, Nicholas Hoult plays, Keanu Reeves' character from Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you can kind of follow along of what's really happening, but, like, I wanted to see a bit more torment on him, and I don't necessarily want to say that, like, Keanu Reeves did it better, because I don't think so. But I would like to have seen Nicholas Holt's character of Thomas Hutter to be sort of put through the ringer a little bit more than it was in the movie. I feel like some of his stuff, some of his torments, you saw them stretch out a bit longer, and I found it to be a bit more interesting in Bram Stoker's Dracula than I did in Nosferatu. And it kind of has, like, similar beats and everything, and obviously you kind of know what's going to happen. But I kind of wanted to see his character fleshed out a little bit more. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson, I love this dude. I love him in Kick-Ass. I love him in Fall Guy. He was great in Bullet Train. Bullet Train is one of those movies where I really wasn't expecting anything going into that film, and I found myself very much enjoying it, mainly because of Aaron Taylor Johnson. I thought he was absolutely, utterly underutilized in this film. I like, his character is doing what he's supposed to do, and he gets a lot of screen time, and he does get a lot of, like, emotional baggage, but for some reason, I always felt like Aaron Taylor Johnson was holding back a little bit. Just something was holding him back. And maybe it's because he's so larger than life in Fall Guy, and I just watched that. And maybe it's because, Kick-Ass, his character goes through so many, things and transformations in Kick-Ass that I wanted to see more from Aaron Taylor Johnson. But that's not to say that the character, like, needed more. Like, he did everything the character required him to do. I just didn't find his performance that memorable, which is sad because, he's so damn good. Willem Dafoe was great. He's always great. I liked him better in The Lighthouse, but that's a whole different role than what he is here. I will say that the character says cock a lot in this movie, like, because they're referring to, like, not the cock between your pants, but, like, or between your legs, but like a chicken. But he says cock very specifically in this movie. The way Willem Dafoe he's like puts this emphasis on cock, like, constantly. It's great, and his character says cock like 50 times throughout the entire fucking film. It's something else. But he was great as he always is. But that's kind of the main cast, the main group of characters. There's one more guy, Simon McBurney, who I had never seen before, but he plays, the Renfield character in this, and he was great. Actually, I really liked him. Looking at his IMDb, I kind of don't know him from anybody, but he was freaking awesome. I very much enjoyed him. So I kind of touched on what I kind of didn't like. I kind of, what kind of keeps this movie from being just truly great is, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I wanted more from him. But again, I don't really fault the movie in that regard because he is doing what his character needs him to do. And it doesn't really need him to be any bigger than what he is. That's just sort of my expectation. I do think Nicholas Holt's character of Thomas Hutter could have been, expanded on a little bit further. But ultimately, I think what holds the movie back for me is a little bit of the runtime. It's 2 hours and almost 15 minutes. And that's not very long when it comes to like these type of movies, but I kind of felt it, and it's only because like I started to become aware of how much time was in between me seeing Count Orlok, and like I wanted to see Count Orlok more. And I'm just kind of like, okay, here's a scene that's happening here, and here's a scene with Lily Taylor or Depp or whatever her name is, kind of going crazy here, and and here's another scene here, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, but where's more Count Orlok? Like, that's kind of what I want. And I think if you trim some spots here and there, it would have condensed the time, it would have condensed it a bit more. I mean, I'm looking at Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that's 2 hours and 8 minutes. This is only 5 minutes longer, but I felt like that movie is paced so much better. I feel like I walk away knowing much more about the characters in that movie than I do in this one. And it has a lot of the same scenes. It does deviate pretty greatly in some parts, and definitely more towards, the third act of Nosferatu. It starts to deviate from that. But like, I feel like in this, Count Orlok isn't as much of a main character, whereas in Bram Stoker's Dracula always sort of feels like the main character to me, and Keanu Reeves feels like a secondary character to me. Whereas here, I can tell Lily Rose Depp is a main character. Nicholas Hoult is there to sort of serve the story, but it's definitely her story. And obviously it's also Count Orlok's story as well. But again, I think I craved just more screen time of Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. I craved more of him and Lily Rose Depp together, because when they're together, it's great, and I'm into it, and I can feel it, and I can feel her torment and everything. And even when she is tormented and he's not there, you hear him, you see maybe some sort of images of him in the shadows and stuff. So you always like sort of feel his presence. But, like I said, the runtime, maybe if you trimmed it a little bit, there'd be sort of less time in between the Count Orlok scenes, and I might have felt a bit more satiated as I moved forward, thinking back on the film. So now I think back on it, and I'm like, I love the visuals. I love the performances of Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp. I loved, it's not very gory, but it's all atmosphere. It's like oozing atmosphere. It's oozing dread. I love that. But I also look back on it, and I can remember that I was also a bit fatigued by the film by the end of it. And I think, like I said, if you just maybe trimmed a couple scenes that like didn't really there were more character-driven scenes that kind of didn't really have anything to do with Count Orlok and whatnot, maybe then we'd have a bit of a tighter film and a tighter pacing. Like, I'll just say it, like, I guess it's a little bit of a spoiler, but obviously, you see the voyage of Count Orlok crossing the seas and, coming to, I think Germany or wherever, it takes place on the Demeter, and it's like that. There's like a couple scenes on the ship, and it brings nothing new to the table that I think you could have completely cut out those scenes completely. Maybe then shaved off maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes of the film as in total, because we just got the final voyage of the Demeter, last year as a full film. And, this did almost essentially everything that the Bram Stoker's Dracula did. So it's like, at this point moving forward, if you're going to retell the Dracula story, it's kind of like, I don't need a Batman origin story anymore. I don't need a Spider-Man or a Superman origin story anymore, ever. I don't think any of us do. It's been done so many times. And I think at this point, you can kind of take out the Demeter scenes, like the boat scenes. It's just, we know it. He crosses over and he brings a plague with him. Let's just at this point, just go watch The Last Voyage or The Final Voyage of the Demeter, whatever the hell that movie is called. I didn't see it. So yeah, that's, and I know we talk about runtimes a lot here, and I'm trying to like cut down on that a little bit. But, I do think in this case, I do think it is, should be noted because it's a great movie and there's not much to dislike about it. And I think the runtime is one of the few things that I would actually, maybe trim a little bit. I think that pacing, Spielberg is one of the best directors, with the best pacing, out there. And I think that we need to get back to pacing. I don't mind a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. I don't mind a 2.5 hour movie if it's paced well. And I don't feel that 2 hours and 15 minutes. When I watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, I don't feel that 2 hours and 8 minutes, but I do feel this 2 hours and 12 minutes. So it's just something that should be noted. But otherwise, I think, if this movie intrigues you enough, I think you should see it in the theater. It's worth seeing in the theater. It's a gorgeous film. It deserves to be seen in the theater, and I'm glad it's doing well. And I don't think I'll own the 4K or anything. And to be honest with you, I've only ever watched The Witch once. I've only ever watched The Lighthouse once. And, I probably will only see this once or, a couple times in my life. But I'm glad that it exists. And I hope that it opens the door for more, like gothic, atmospheric horror movies, in the future. So here's hoping. Fingers crossed. But yeah, Nosferatu. Great movie. Not perfect. Didn't love it as much as I wanted to love it. But I did still very much enjoy it. On the cusp of loving it. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this little mini review. I'll try to do these more in the future as time permits. So yeah, I hope you guys dig it. Let me know. Leave a message, leave a comment on social media or on Patreon or wherever this lands. Let me know what you guys think of it. As always, thank you all so much to our Patreon members for, the love and support that you guys give us. You guys are freaking awesome. And if you're not, go check out patreon.com/podcastafterdark. Again, that's patreon.com/podcastafterdark. And yeah, check out Tour de Force tier, check out our producer tier, or just at the base level, you can get ad-free versions of episodes. So, and if I somehow decide to just make this a Patreon exclusive series, well then, disregard everything I just said because you guys who hear this are patrons, and I thank you. And as always, we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.